All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're hopping into it. Game number 1 between these two players in the winners round of 8 for the IEM Shanghai qualifiers. Go ahead and jump into it as we start up here in the top right-hand corner of the map, atop of the purple Terran player from Team Gravity, one of my favorite North American players and just favorite Terran players of all time. It is Semper. His favorite players to watch. Bit of friendly banter as down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, a man who loves his friendly banter, representing Team Evil Geniuses. Give it up for the orange Protoss player, HuK. Hey man, I love how much people are using all these emotes now. And there's been a really interesting conundrum that I think has appeared in StarCraft where the poo emote has caused a bit of controversy in my mind. Because I've seen a lot of players, like I've talked with State. State is actually one of the people who really staunchly defended and said, you know, when a player uses the poo emote at the beginning of a game, it's like a friendly, hey, yeah, let's have some fun, GLHF. It's almost like a substitute for that sort of sentiment, because it looks so happy. But then there's also the people who are like, oh, you're sending me the poo emote at the beginning of the game. What are you trying to say? Like, are you saying I'm the equivalent of poo? Are you calling me a bad name or something? Saying that my play is like terrible? And it's a bit of controversy in terms of the meaning and whether or not it's BM. I guess it sort of depends on the player and how they take it versus what the intention is, but it really does depend on like each individual player. And of course, I guess the context also matters. If you cheese someone, if you like try and cannon rush them, you just spam a bunch of poos, then probably gonna take it as a BM sort of way rather than just someone who plays very, very standard macro style. But of course, it is always fun to see the meta game that comes behind all those emotes. It does really add another dimension to what you think your opponent's going to be going for. But Semper opening up with the fast factory, getting up a second barracks and everything. This is very typical Semper. I'm actually more surprised when Semper doesn't go for the very fast one racks factory. Try and get up to that starport as fast as possible, because again, he's a player that the medevac is like his sole unit. If he had a spirit animal, it would be the medevac. You might be saying, Fear Dragon, medevacs aren't animals. Well, I would say, well, it doesn't matter, because the medevac would still be the most important thing in Semper's life. In fact, if you ever want to give Semper like some sort of awesome thing that he can use at a live event that'll give him hope, that'll give him courage, it would be like a stuffed medevac doll. I'm pretty sure that would be his #1 go-to. Because again, he really loves his drops. I cannot emphasize that enough. HuK, of course, a man that I think a lot of people will say he really loves his early aggression, just the weirdly timed aggression, pushing out and being aggressive with just gateway units, using the top 3 control joke that, of course, never gets old. And of course, going for the Blinkstalker Robo, gonna be very fitting for that. Reaper comes in over here, and ooh, a big pull out of HuK right now, as the Stalker is a bit out of position. I believe he might have skipped the Mothership Core. Yeah, he skipped the Mothership Core. Gonna use these probes, though, to get a full surround over here. Doesn't end up losing more than one worker. Yeah, kills off one singular worker, which isn't too bad. I mean, a bit of lost mining time as well, so Semper's not going to be super unhappy with how that went. And of course, he does get a nice scout off and sees the robotic facility, sees the Twilight Council. He's going to have a decent idea of what he wanted to see with that Reaper. HuK going to continue to warp in a couple of these Stalkers. Going to be useful if he comes up against, say, something like a Liberator coming in to harass. And that Liberator going to be popping out right around the same time that the reactor is finishing up, so we can pop that over, start getting out those medevacs at double time as soon as the factory ends up finishing that up. And a third CC finally being plopped down over here for Semper, a bit later than HuK's third Nexus, which finished up a decent bit of time ago, or just actually finished up. Still needs to transfer his workers over there, but he's going to have a pretty decent economy going. Semper really does want to get some sort of damage done to sort of equalize the fact that HuK is gone for this much earlier third expansion, whereas Semper invested into this early game Stargate or Starport tech. But we do have some well-positioned, or at least one well-positioned pylon over here for HuK. Normally, I think it's a little bit hard because you don't have an infinite number of pylons to throw out, especially when you have a third expansion going up. You want to plant down a pylon over your front, but there's a bit of danger over here because, yeah, you can see this pylon doesn't actually reach the Liberator over here if there was a foot-ton overcharge. But there is the Blink over here, so he does manage to pick off the Liberator fairly quickly. Ends up losing a single Stalker for his troubles, but still a good trade overall for the Protoss player. And not really getting a whole lot of worker kills, so really good reaction time over there from HuK. Double medevac drop gonna be coming out immediately afterwards, though, from that reactor starport. So Semper gonna try and kick up the aggression. He has all of his medevacs, so in one place, so maybe a little bit harder to make the damage happen. Observer over here spotting out that Semper still has not taken that third expansion. This might be a little bit worrying. I'm actually not sure what Semper is thinking right now, because he has seen this third for a bit of time. It's been in vision. He saw it, I believe, as he moved in with the Liberator. Oh, Marines moving forward and sniping off one of the sentries, or two of the sentries. Managed to get a little bit of damage done over there, but does lose a handful of these Marines, and now might end up losing a couple more, having to stim them up once again. HuK might go for the aggressive blink, and there it is, as he says, well, you're that low on health, I don't actually think you can fight my stalkers head on. And Semper has to get all the way out of there. Wow, HuK is really taking a very, very good early game, because he's gotten away with this third expansion so much earlier on. Semper has not been able to take this third for a very odd amount of time. Only finally going to be able to get it over there. And HuK, I really just feel like the only thing that's really lacking, I would say, is additional tech. He's got a couple of the gateways out and everything, so he can put on a lot of gateway aggression. I think he's sitting on 7 or 8 gateways right now. Yeah, 7 gateways, and he can move in. He has the Warp Prism. He has a Guardian Shield to help absorb some of that damage, especially on those Adepts. A very aggressive blink forward to the Stalkers, trying to pick off one of the Liberators. Does need to keep them alive to deal with the other Liberator that does siege up. 2 Liberators now in the mix, and they are going to be target firing down those Stalkers immediately. A couple of the Stalkers do manage to blink out, and HuK does warp in another reinforcing round, and he is going to be able to deny all mining over here at this third expansion. So HuK, with a force seal on the ramp, going to be able to secure a massive lead even further in this game. Semper might have +1 weapons, but I mean, what good is +1 weapons when you lose your third? Oh my god, I actually didn't expect it to go down over there, as there was no repair coming in from the SCVs. He has a single SCV pulled, but I guess he wasn't really expecting the Stalkers to go that ham on it either. And that's going to be a brutal blow. How in the world does Semper recover from this? HuK not only has the economy, he also has a decently sized army that if Semper tried to go for a direct engage right now, HuK has a bigger army supply, and it's pretty decent army as well with the blink already researched. He has +1/+1 on the way. He has double Stargates coming out to deal with the Liberators, start getting out some of those Tempests. There is not a lot at all going Semper's way. Semper restarting that third expansion, saying, oh, well, I gotta do something about this. I mean, I'm actually surprised he doesn't maybe just try and lift up some of these SCVs in a medevac and float his main over to this gold expansion or something. Just something to get some sort of form of an economy going again. Something to keep him in this game, and maybe even throw HuK a bit off guard, because I feel like he's got to take a risk somehow. Either he's got to try and do something sneaky like that, or he's got to try and maybe put on some harassment on HuK. I know that's a very scary prospect, though, because HuK is going to keep scouting out with these Adepts. He's going to say, oh, okay, your army's a little bit too small. It looks like you have sent out something, so I'm just going to go in right now and kill you while you don't have your full army force. But, oh, Liberator's a bit too far out. Going to get sniped off immediately by those Stalkers. You really need that Liberator count to build up. But I really do feel like you have to go for some kind of risk. Load up a single medevac and try and go across the map. Try and pull HuK back. That's one way to maybe try and go about this, but the longer that he wakes, oh god, even getting a couple of Phoenix out here, this is going to make actually that kind of counter harassment potential for going out with a medevac even harder to make work. Well, the supply depots are down because there's not a whole lot he can do. But of course, don't want to just go in blindly with just the pure Adepts. We want that Stalker backup, and honestly, HuK doesn't need to force an engagement right now. He can just sit outside over here and scare Semper until Semper feels comfortable moving down into HuK. And that's when HuK can engage. Because HuK's sitting on the 3 base economies. HuK's the one getting up the late game Tempest tech and everything else going his way. Yeah, Tempest going to be on the way. He's a little bit supply blocked, unfortunately. Tempests do take up quite a bit of supply. But man, these Adepts are also just scaring Semper and really making it hard for him to move out. Finally, he's going to feel comfortable moving down. Yeah, I really do feel like maybe, actually, it's a little bit hard to say if he could have moved down a little bit earlier. Either way, Semper didn't feel comfortable moving down earlier. Finally establishes his third expansion, and at least now he has a decent amount of energy to drop down some mules for. But HuK just one-ups him, goes for the 4th expansion. His +2/+2 is on the way and being chrono boosted out. So I think that once +2/+2 finishes, he's gonna have 4 to 6 Tempests out. He's gonna be able to move out and probably get some serious damage done. And I feel like that's gonna be sort of the killing blow for Semper. Couple of medevacs moving out, and do manage to spawn out the Warp Prism. Warp Prism drops out the Adepts, and they are going to be the sacrificial lambs that allow the Warp Prism to get away. I think that's definitely worth it for HuK. Because keeping that Warp Prism alive is just that extra bit of scariness that Semper really doesn't want to have to deal with right now. He doesn't want to have to keep his army at home trying to deal with the aggression. What does Semper do? Semper still has those 3 medevacs worth of units now just moving across the map. And I guess the one kind of advantage is that as HuK takes more expansions, he is going to be more spread out, especially if he tries to move in for the attack and his army's out of position and deal with 3 medevacs worth of units. If he can pull HuK back instead of just letting HuK get far enough across the map that he just feels comfortable with some kind of quasi base trade situation, knowing that 3 medevacs worth of units are no longer with the army for Semper on the defense, then maybe he can make something work, but oh, it's going to be so difficult. Scan goes down, gonna be able to pick off the observer. Hey, that's nice. Still 2 observers left out on the map right now. One with the army, another over at the front that Semper not quite scouted out. Semper does have the 4th expansion taken as well as, and that's a new orbital command, I believe. Yeah, gonna be making it into a planetary fortress. So not an orbital command, but yeah. So I mean, he's got 4 CCs, or you know, pretty decent economy is starting to get going now, and he does still have 67 workers, so it's not totally over for Semper, but this is the big scary moment. 2-2 is finished up. He has 4 Tempests out. He's going to be getting up a 5th and maybe even a 6th soon. 3-3 is on the way, plus 1 air weapons is on the way. Semper is going to be sitting very far behind in terms of tech right now, and this is the big scary push, that if Semper can defend over here and not lose too much, then he might still have a chance of bringing this back, but this is so difficult. Even going to be losing the Widow Mines over here, as the Observer plus Tempest are going to be able to easily snipe those guys off. Semper actually loading up 4 medevacs. Is he going to actually try and maneuver around and go for the drop? Oh, he's going to have next to nothing back at home to defend with this, but I mean, I suppose if you can force a base trade, that might be one of the best options for Semper to make this work. Trying to get the kickoff. He does kill off one of those observers. Another observer does make its way into the limelight. I think that Semper saw... Okay, he was just trying to get the high ground vision over here. Trying to pick off some of those stalkers, but here we go. Tempest now starting to whittle away at that army, and there's not a lot of army to whittle away at. Planetary Fortress is going to be key in the defense over here. 27 of 16 workers. I guess Semper can afford to lose a couple of workers over here in the aggression. But here we go. 4 medevacs worth of units. A full energy mothership core. Going to be throwing down some of those foot and overcharges pretty soon. But oh, throws them all down on the very far back pylons. I guess just trying to buy a little bit of time as he moves his entire Adept army back. This is actually working out pretty well for Semper, I would say. He loses a little bit of his economy over at that 4th expansion. But again, he had workers to lose over at that 4th. And really, he's getting a decent amount of damage on and buying himself so much time. Oh, Phoenix is going to be able to get a bit of damage done on these medevacs, but not focus firing down any of the weakened medevacs. So he is going to be able to get out of there. He needs to unload 2 of these medevacs to just deal with this. Yeah, Marines are going to be able to push those guys back. At the same time, we have a bit of an engagement over here. Liberator's getting caught very far out of position. All of them are going to go down to the Tempest, but the Stalkers maybe blinking a little bit too far forward. No, the Adepts come in from the backside. Going to be able to reinforce and support. These medevacs can go back into the main base, though. Does Semper realize that? He sees that the army is moving across the map. He throws down the scan. He knows, yes, it is time. Go after that 4th expansion. It's time to try and pull HuK back once again. He can defend at this planetary fortress. If he can get the defense up, he can still make this work. But, oh, the Tempest, they're... Again, still whittling away at that Viking count, and the Adept count is so high. 3-3 is finished up over here. HuK trying to get a reinforcing wave of Zealots, and the Zealots are not going to be able to get into a good position. Not behind the mineral line. HuK has to pull back again, and Semper manages to hold on to that 4th expansion. He kills off a decent number of workers. He's up to, I believe, 19 workers killed so far this game. And he's even going to be able to get out of there with one of the medevacs. Has a single Marine over here. I guess maybe as a spotter or maybe as an accident. Either way, going to act as a bit of a spotter. And HuK trying to go in once again, but Semper has bought himself time. He has another army that's kind of been macroed up. He doesn't have a lot of medevacs. Oh my god, Semper, you are absolutely insane. In the midst of the attack coming in, he's going to try and send out 2 more medevacs to put on the harassment. I don't even know how he's going to defend this 4th expansion this time, because now the army is looking a little bit scary. I like the Hallucinated Archon. Has +3 weapons that does 0 damage right now, but still going to be able to absorb a lot of damage. Maybe even just scare Semper out a little bit. Still got that 1 medevac over here that's ready to move in. The 2 medevacs. Where did those other 2 medevacs go? Here they are, trying to move down around the bottom side of the map again. Single Marine over here for Semper spots out and says there is no 5th expansion, so you know what? I'm not actually down and out just yet. And this has been a crazy back and forth game. And I say back and forth because it's not just been this close game the entire time. It's looked like at different points in time, oh, you know, such and like HuK had a really good start. HuK was looking very good in the early game, and even moving the mid game, it looked like Semper may had a chance to bring it back, but still, HuK, I would say, definitively had an advantage, but Semper was able to make it work with just that positional drop play and pulling HuK back multiple times, using the planetary fortress as that kind of extra scary bit of defense that HuK didn't want to go through by himself. And here we go, Marauder plus a couple of Marine hit squad. There are a decent number of buildings, and actually even the Warpin adding a lot over here. The Medivacs are going to get focus fired down. That's actually a really nice snipe off over here for HuK, because I mean that this army is going to have a hard time escaping out of here, especially even if they go up this ramp. Or are they going to go after that? Here's the big problem though. Another drop comes in over here from the south side. There is never just one thing going on with Semper. He's moving in from multiple locations, especially in the late game, and he's going to try and get a bit of damage done over here. He kills off a decent number of workers, now down to 47. HuK going to be struggling a little bit, and got a scan coming down. It looks like no. HuK knows that the army is still over here. He's not going to let them move back in a little bit later on. Marauder's going to do their best to trade out as evenly as possible, but HuK is split up on both sides. He knows that the Adepts can clean up at least a majority of these Marauders, if not all of them in time. The Tempest searching around for those Medivacs, searching around for the drops and saying, no, you're not going to drop me from the bottom side. I'm not going to let you harass me from the top side. 3 units still survive. HuK is back in position, ready to deal with any sort of forces that could have tried to move in from the front side. Down along that center, because that is just what, again, Semper loves to do. Oh, I think we're getting a bit of lag. Oh no, take TV! Naruto! Oh my god, Naruto lagging. I don't know what's going on. He needs to up his game, go into, I don't know, what was it called? Sage mode or something? I read Naruto. I know the story. Well, that's unfortunate. Well, this is a great time to just talk about the fact that, hey, welcome over here, everyone over here on BaseTradeTV. This is the IEM North American Shanghai Qualifiers. This is in the round of 8 winners match between HuK and Semper, as obviously you can see the players, but Semper did have a bye in the first round since he was supposed to play against Scarlet, a match that a lot of people were looking forward to, myself included. Unfortunately, Scarlet was unable to play today, so he ended up just getting the bye. HuK ended up beating Creature in a PvP, now playing his PvT, and looks like there it goes. Poor Take, gonna get kicked out. So I guess this is the only stream now broadcasting this match, unfortunately. But here we go. High Templars finally being warped in, and HuK is gonna start to get up some of that splash damage. Ghosts coming out at the same time though, 3 ghosts at a time. We're starting to get into that late game stage. HuK coming in with the double stalker harassment from the high ground. Something that will never get annoying, or stop being annoying on Dust Tower. Oh, snipes off the Observer. That's definitely not too bad. I don't think he has any really Whittle Mine counts to scoff at, though. But man, Semper's losing a lot of his army over there. I really don't think that was a good engagement to take. He's going for the drop at the same time. Drops in the main base. There's a lot of pylons over here. He's not going to be able to depower everything. But more Zealots being warped in over anything else. HuK has a massive gas bank, but it seems he's really just resilient to warp in anything but Zealots right now. I mean, they are sitting on 3-3 upgrades versus just 2-2. 3-3 still trying to finish up over here for Semper, but Semper not taking the best of engagers right now. He's really feeling pressured over here at the high ground, and he feels like he has to take a fight, but these Archons, these Adepts are taking such good trades. He needs to fight back by his planetary fortress, I feel like, and maybe just try and use just Liberators or something to deal with any units that are up on the high ground denying mining. But oh god, Semper is really not getting the better end of this. Drop in the main base was also cleaned up. Semper coming in with some more units, and he does have the ability to now throw down a couple of EMPs. The EMP is going to be scary for those Adepts that do rely on those shields to take a bit more of that damage. The Adepts are going to be moving around, and it looks like Semper may have to be defending this other location, this bottom side, and he's going to be pretty far out of position to deal with it. The Adepts are going to have a great opportunity to get some worker kills, as there are 57 workers, but I think that neither of these two players are on massive economies at this point. They have more workers than they're really effectively or efficiently mining with, for the most part. Yeah, you can see over there. Even having to transfer a few out. Adepts deny a little bit of mining, kill off a couple of those workers, the rest of them go back to work, and he's going to be able to push HuK back. I don't believe there's any more harassment coming out from Semper right now, but both of these players sticking it in, sticking through. after taking a beating on both sides. Finally, Fleet Beacon coming back up. I believe that got killed off in one of the earlier drops that we might have missed. I want to give a huge shout out to Nemic5, who actually just subbed to BaseTradeTV. Thank you so much, Nemic. Huge shout out to you, man. Thank you so much for the sub. But all right, plus you always know a Protoss player is just like trying to figure out what to do with their money in their bank when you start seeing them getting past even like +1 shield upgrades. Because the shield upgrades are great, don't get me wrong, but you just know Protoss players, like, they don't go for that unless they like are really uncertain what to do with that money. They're really looking and striving for something. They're like, let me just get all the upgrades right now. But we got a new base coming up over here for Semper, and I really like, you know, that's the one thing that I really like about Semper's position is that he can continue to get up planetary fortresses. It's going to be a lot harder to actually move in over here for HuK unless the army is really, really caught out of position. The planetary fortress just buys time, but HuK getting in between the bases over here, going to try and move in over here to the orbital command. And sees, okay, all the Liberators siege up, that's totally fine. Gonna lose a couple of the Archons on the retreat down the ramp, so that's less than ideal. He's not actually gonna have an opportunity to move in over here to the Planetary Fortress, surprisingly. Man, I really do feel like if he had a couple of High Templars over here sitting at the bottom of the ramp, he moves in with the army at the top side, forces the siege up, has a couple of High Templar, and moves down over here, and can take out the Planetary Fortress and deny the rest of the army from Semper from chasing, which is a couple of good storms on the ramp. That would have been a really nice play, but I think it gets a little bit difficult over here, especially with the ghosts in the mix, to move around very effectively with this High Templar. And this is the point where, again, Semper and his positioning is pretty solid so far. He hasn't really been caught out of position very much. I would say that was probably the closest he's been to being caught out of position, but it wasn't too far off. So he had enough time to react and push HuK back before he can move in and try and take out that planetary fortress. It does take a bit of time, especially with their para going down on it. And the army from HuK is also not very stalker heavy. It's not very ranged heavy. It's actually got a decent number of these zealots, these charge zealots in the mix that really won't do too well against planetary fortress. Even the adepts don't do amazingly well. But whoa, catching a couple of these Archons. That's a nice pick off over there from Semper. All of his ghosts sitting on the bottom side. Maybe looking for some good EMPs. Are they going to be able to find it? Getting very far forward. He's picking off most of the Tempests. All the Tempests have actually been picked off over here. Now the Liberators going to go more or less uncontested. There's not even that many Stalkers available. Oh, this could be a big moment for Semper, but does he have the ground army to back it up? The Liberators dealing a lot of damage, taking out a huge chunk of these Zealots, a huge chunk of these Adepts. But it looks like he just doesn't have the ground army to really make it work. No, GG gets called. Semper manages to take it. GG. And I don't know what's going on with oh, nope, that's HuK. Semper taking game number 1 in this best of 3. And I don't know what's going on with my XSplit right now. It's super laggy for some reason when I try and do those scene transitions. But big congratulations to Semper. Ladies and gentlemen, before we hop into the next game, I want to go to a short little break. And thank you again so much for tuning in for the BaseTradeTV coverage of the the IEM Shanghai qualifiers, the North American Passport qualifiers. We'll be back in a little bit. Please don't go anywhere. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're hopping back into it. Game number 2 between these two players as we spawn down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. Top of the purple Terran player sitting up 1-0 to give it up for Team Gravity's Semper. And his opponent spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map. We have the orange Protoss player from Team Evil Geniuses. Give it up for HuK. All right. So do apologize. I think that people calling me out, maybe a little bit rightfully so, for missing a bit of that fight. Missing some of the, like, say, the Tempest and everything getting picked off. I got to see a bit of the wrap-up in the replay as I'm watching them on a bit of a delay. I do apologize. I was getting a couple of messages on Skype about something related to the production. So as you guys notice, I'm not entirely on top of it right now. I'm a little bit rusty. It's been a... I would actually say it's actually been a few weeks since I've been able to do a broadcast on BaseTradeTV, but good to be back. Regardless, we do have a Reaper opening and everything, I'll note, from Semper. Getting a bit of a scout off and everything. Of course, this is a nice map for the Reapers. Have a lot of area. I talked about this in the last series where we had Masa casting, but the Adept going to be moving out pretty early on from HuK. I don't think he's getting the Mothership Core, though. No, he's only just now getting out that Mothership Core. He has a second Adept coming out, but even that Adept is actually trying to position itself to try and move out soon. No. Is going to be able to push back that Reaper. Reaper will be able to get out alive, but doesn't actually get a scout off on that Twilight Council. You can probably try and guess that it's a Twilight Council opening regardless, but just because it's like the more traditional and standard opening these days from a Protoss player, but it's still nice to get the confirmation that there's no Stargate or anything else weird coming out from your opponent. Such as, you know, there's still other things. There's like the Dark Templar drops and fun stuff that can happen. There's actually no robotic facility coming down. Or at least I don't believe so. No robotic facility coming out. We have Blink being researched, it's being chrono boosted out, and really just delaying any form of robotic facility. Does manage to get a pick off on, I believe, the Reaper that was up there. As the Adeptus continue to try and push in over here. Just trying to get a bit of a scout off. But that is one thing I will say that I actually wouldn't hate if HuK tried to get a little bit more aggressive this game and threw down a bunch more gateways and went for some Blink aggression in this game. First of all, it's a really nice map for Blink aggression. You can blink up over here, and your opponent has to cover both this side over here, the natural expansion, as well as their main base. But after that last game, one thing you have to remember about Semper is that he just gets better and better as the game goes on, especially in scrappy situations. That is where Semper hits his stride. So maybe trying to take him out early on would be a good bet, but we do have robotic facility coming out, so may or may not still be a bit of that Blink aggression. Could still throw down some more gateways. It wouldn't be exactly heavy aggression at this point, since Blink would be finishing up a bit before any additional gateways would be going down. So still a nice bit of damage from HuK. I mean, especially you imagine with how many of these Marines that he's actually managed to take out. If he had gone for some heavy Blink aggression, if he had thrown down a lot of gateways, this actually could have worked out really nicely. But I think that he's going to be only going up to around 4 or so gateways. Might be able to put on little bits of pressure, but for the most part, probably going to be sitting back a little bit more defensively. Regardless, though, this is one of the maps that when you deal with drop harassment and everything, can be a bit frustrating just because your opponent, they drop or push in over here at the third expansion. As soon as you move down all your units, if you have a bunch of adepts or zealots or what have you down over here to defend, your opponent immediately just picks up and goes straight over to the main base, and it's just such a headache to deal with. You really do need those Blink Stalkers, the Mothership Core with some nice photon overcharge positioning, and just really good positional play to deal with it. Liberator are going to be coming over here. The sentries are not the ones that try and deal with the Liberator harassment. You want to move those back immediately. HuK does have Blink finished up, so you can try and move in with these Stalkers and Blink forward. I believe with 5 Stalkers, you'll only end up losing 1 Stalker. Oh, and nice. He does manage to dodge one of those Stalker shots. It doesn't even lose the shields on the other Stalker. Normally, I think that you do end up losing shields a little bit. But Semper getting up the fast +1 weapons, getting up combat shield, did get up a fairly fast starport as we saw. Similar opening that we saw on, I believe it was Dust Towers, where got up the fast Liberator, gets up the fast double medevac, and moves out with those double medevacs. Try and get a little bit of aggression done. Of course, at the same time, HuK going for a slight rearrangement of his units and the order that he's getting things. I think he's getting a slightly slower robotic facility in this game. Got up the gateways a little bit earlier on. Maybe getting up resonating glaives a little bit earlier. But still gets up that relatively okayly fast third. I think it's maybe a minute or 2 later. But Semper going to be moving in, and oh, HuK is so prepared for this. This is, again, I was talking about this in the other series with Masa, and he just has such good vision with those Xel'Naga Watchtowers. It's something that I think that Blizzard is talking about taking out because it just looks so strong when you have that. And we have a very aggressive Blink forward over here from HuK. Not going to lose any of his Stalkers for it either. Just forces another stim out. Going to be able to pick off one of the medevacs, and oh, this is not looking so good for Semper. He loses quite a bit, and I think that he's not going to be able to really safely secure a third expansion for a little bit now because he's lost a decent bit. Medevac on the left-hand side does not manage to get a whole lot done, so does have to back up, and now HuK is sitting in a very aggressive position. Has his own third and is denying Semper's third expansion. Concussive shells +1 weapons is more important thing that's going to be on the way, and a lot of force fields coming down, trying to stop any repair on that bunker, trying to prevent those units on the high ground from moving down. Some good Guardian shields also adding in. Oh my god, so many force fields coming down, trapping out a decent chunk of those units. He pushes them all the way from the bottom of the ramp to the top of the ramp, and HuK is out for blood right now. He is saying, well, you know what, I'm not going to let you take his late game. I'm not going to let you get up to the point where you have enough units to drop me in a lot of locations and keep me pinned back for such a long time. GG gets called, and HuK gonna be taking game number 2, tying up the series 1-1. Really well done by HuK in that game. A much faster game. I believe that was like an 8-minute game. And that means that we'll probably skip any like commercial breaks or anything for a little bit, since I think that we will probably hop into the next game pretty soon. Took a commercial break last time just because it's like a 25 or like 27-minute game, so a pretty long one. But you know, HuK, I think again, like that is gonna be the thing that I would really like to see out of HuK. If there's one weakness about Semper. Well, okay, there's 2 weaknesses about Semper. I will disclose this a little bit in advance. So if any of you Terran players out there that don't know about, or sorry, Protoss players out there that don't know about Semper's weakness, I'm about to spill the beans right now. I love Semper, but this is something, I'm doing this for your own good, Semper, because if I tell other people about it and they abuse it against you long enough, you'll get better at it. You'll have to. But Semper's 2 big weaknesses are, I wouldn't even say the first one's a bit of a weakness, it's just that he's less strong about it in the early game, because Semper gets stronger in the later stages of the game. So taking him out early on is generally what I've seen to be the stronger player, or at least putting on some big harassment that really sets him behind, and you have to get that kill move off on Semper, because if you let the game go on, you kind of saw what happened with him in game number 1, where Semper finds a way to come back through a lot of that drop harassment and pulling you out of position and make things very awkward. But the other thing about Semper is that he really struggles with disruptors. There is a real struggle with disruptors for Semper, and I talk with him about it, and he acknowledges this is like one of these things that frustrates him, because he's one of these players that I would actually say there's 3 kinds of Terran players out there in Terran versus Protoss. There's the players that split against disruptors. There's the players that pick up versus disruptors. And I think there's a couple of European players that BaseTradeTV likes talking about, or Rifkin Zabigrov love talking about, that like pick up in the medevacs versus disruptor shots. And then there's the players that try and stim and run away from disruptors most of the time. And Semper is in that last category. The problem is the disruptor shots actually outrun you. So it can be really scary. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hop into Invader. I really would like to see HuK continue that kind of aggression. I'd love to see Semper just try and get to that late game. We're hopping in Invader, though. We'll see you guys there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're hopping into it. Game number 3 from the winners round of 8. We're going to be going into the game, the ace match on a map that is always very interesting to see, especially in a Protoss versus Terran. I'm actually really surprised to see this make it past the vetoes for HuK. But ladies and gentlemen, spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, the purple Terran player from Team Gravity. Give it up for Semper. And his opponent spawning down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, the orange Protoss player from Team Evil Geniuses. Give it up for EG's HuK. But I say I'm a bit surprised to see Invader. It's not as crazy as I think it's since, well, actually, you know, I get to see PvTs on this map so often that I'll be entirely straightforward about this. I actually don't really know too much about it. A lot of it has been based on speculation early on when players, I would hear them talk about this map and PvT, just because oftentimes I see it vetoed and it never makes it into these Protoss versus Terran situations. But a lot of the time, the drop harassment between the 3rd expansion and the main base can be a huge problem. So that's going to be another one of these things that I think HuK is going to say, okay, we're playing on Invader. I really don't want to take this to the even later stages versus a player like Semper, who's going to absolutely abuse 3rd expansion. What, your 4th expansion is like the gold or over here? This is going to be even harder to defend against a very drop-heavy player. I mean, it's not like you're going to try and take this 4th expansion unless you have a very scary Tempest-based army or something along those lines. So I think that this game is definitely going to be a really typical case of HuK wants to try and end this earlier. Semper wants to try and draw this out and get to that comfortable late-game situation where he has the resources and the capabilities to make use of that late-game harassment. In the early game, Semper can do okay, but he doesn't really have the things that he needs to make it work. And I would actually say sometimes in the early game, one of his weaknesses is that he tries to get over-aggressive. And he'll sometimes just die because he gets a little bit too aggressive and he doesn't have anything back at home to defend. Ooh, really cute little micro over here out of Semper. He's trying to abuse this high ground, even using the grenades to knock this stalker around. Might try and throw down another grenade. I think it's just come off of cooldown. Just delaying it. Very interesting to see the move out from the stalker this early on, though. I guess the Mother's Core is back at home, and there is an Adept somewhere. Where is that Adept? Adept trying to chase down the Reaper now. Reaper gonna be able to just barely... Oh, the juke out of there from HuK. He cancels at the last second, says, nope, I'm standing on the high ground. I know that's where your Reaper's headed. Managed to get a kill off on that Reaper, which is really nice. Because Semper, he got to scout out on the natural expansion. He doesn't really get a scout out on a whole lot else. Whereas if you compare in the last couple of games, you saw the Twilight Council coming down first. This game, we have the Robotic slowly coming down first. And that means that a much, much faster Warp Prism is going to be coming out. This lets HuK maybe get a bit more aggressive earlier on. We see Chrono boosted out Cybernetics Core. We have additional gateways being thrown down. So I think HuK might be looking to be a little bit more aggressive than usual on this map. And again, that's something I'm very much in favor of, considering its success and how I feel like a success rate is going to be. But Semper is sitting very far in the dark right now. He's got a Widow Mine in his main mineral line because he's not even sure if there's going to be maybe an Oracle. But ooh, Adept gets picked off. Stalker getting a little bit lower on health, loses all of its shields, but does manage to keep its main health alive as Semper gets very aggressive out there. Semper only really losing one Marine so far, as well as that singular Reaper that died earlier on. But HuK, he's got 4 gateways. Warp Gate has been Chrono boosted out and he's finally finished up. Warp Prism's out here. He's got 4 Adepts ready to move into the main base. Maybe try and pull some of these units out with the Stalker. Where did the Stalker go? Did the Stalker move all the way home? Yeah, Stalker moved all the way home, maybe to deal with potential for harassment, a Liberator, or a Widow Mine drop or something. But where is that Widow Mine? The Widow Mine was in the main mineral line over here, but now the Adepts are just going to be able to go ham over here. Ooh, doing a lot of damage. Getting 5 workers killed. Only 1 Adept manages to make it out, but so does the Warp Prism. Oh no, the other 2 Adepts are over here on the left-hand side. They didn't get picked off. They just managed to teleport out. You're gonna be able to kill off a couple more of these Marines. I think a decent number of the Marines go down. Not the worst trade in the world for HuK, especially since he gets another opportunity to warp in some more units. I'm just going to come back in over here and drop them. A couple of these weakened SCVs could get Focus Fire down as well. Trying to go for some of these one-shots, but he's going to go for it, yeah. Warp Prism going to get chased away by the Liberator, and if there's some good micro on this Liberator, I believe he may be able to get this Warp Prism, just because the Warp Prism has a very awkward pathway back home. I think the Liberator is getting a couple of stop shots off, but not exactly the most ideal micro. Liberator also does move a little bit faster than the Warp Prism, so should eventually be able to catch it. The Stalkers are trying to come in and save it, though, and hey, losing that Liberator early on would be a big blow to Semper, since he wants to get a bit aggressive with it, or at least defensive with it, because he sees these Stalkers moving out, and that's only gonna spell one thing. That's gonna be more aggression. Blink is gonna be finishing up. HuK is now looking to take a 3rd expansion. He's just throwing down more gateways to try and make this aggression work. And there's only this one bunker over at the front. Warp Prism looking for an opportunity to move back into the main base. This is gonna be the double prong attack from HuK this time. And the bunker is going to try and get repaired back up. He almost lets it fall, as he does have all these Marines moving over the main base trying to deal with the Warp Prism, but the real attack is happening over at the front as the Stalkers continue to try and bust down that wall, and not quite able to make it happen right now. Warp Prism still trying to make some damage happen, but Semper's doing a pretty good job so far. He's sitting down in workers, but he's still got those mules, and HuK has still not got any transitionary tech. Oh, Blink has actually not been researched until just now. Yeah, his Twilight Council was much later this game. He went for the Robo first. Semper holding on strong, so far at least. And of course, you have to remember that if this game goes on and HuK ends up trading out even-ishly and they both end up losing, oh my god, a really sick play. That is such an awesome play from Semper. He moves in with a Medivac and drops on the backside, traps in all these Stalkers, realizing that the rest of the army was just the Warp Prism trying to warp in, and he catches all of them. And now we end up seeing HuK losing such a substantial portion of his army. I think that the Warp Prism was unable to get a whole lot of damage done either, as it was down over here on further south trying to warp in more units, and those 5-6 Stalkers gone down almost for free. Now, the Warp Prism can still move into the main base while the rest of the aggression happens at the natural expansion. But what I was saying is, Semper can eventually, as this aggression finally ends, he can move and just lift up his main orbital command and send it over to the 3rd. HuK has to rebuild his 3rd Nexus, so it's a lot harder for him to transition out tech-wise. This Warp Prism does make its way into the main base. A single Viking gonna put on a little bit of a timer over here. And oh my god, HuK actually abandons down. He's gonna lose the Warp Prism over here, and that means they can only push at the front now. He's not even making another Warp Prism right now. He's making an Observer to try and deal with these Widow Mines that have been made. He does already have an Observer out in the map, but it's sitting in his main base ready to deal with any sort of drop harassment that could be coming out. And HuK has to back out. He has to take this 3rd expansion now. Now, if Semper realizes this is going to be an important thing. He has to realize that HuK has backed off. He's going to move around with a single Marine, try and get a scat off on this, and doesn't see anything. This might cue him to either throw down a third command center or to even just try and lift up his main orbital command center, move over to the third, and just use it as an elongated 2-base economy and try and deny his opponent's third. Because this is where, again, it gets very difficult to defend. You move in over here to the third expansion. HuK has his army over here. Well, cool. You lift up your medevacs and you float around to the corner and go straight to the main base. Even moving over here from the main or from the third expansion over to the natural, you can get over to the natural faster than your opponent can get over to the third. And oh god, HuK a bit out of position right now. He's moving in with his adepts. He's moving in with the stalkers. Already loses both of the pylons, so not gonna have any photon overcharge over there. But the army is not quite that big for Semper, so it feels like HuK can chase this back. He's even gonna get a couple of shots off from those adepts and force that army back. Doing a pretty good job of it so far. As Semper already used the boosters as well, so he can't really even pick up safely. Semper turns around, tries to fight some of those stalkers, maybe trying to scare them backwards, hoping that those adepts are not quite as close as they were. Just ends up losing a couple more of his Marines and Marauders though, as HuK moves in, says, oh, you don't have a third expansion. Now, third expansion is going to be trying to land pretty soon, as it was built over at that natural command center, or natural area. We have a couple more engagements happening around this ramp, and potential for some good force fields over there. Traps in a single Marauder that's actually got balls of steel, has no fear, says, I'll take on this entire army. What are you afraid of? Liberator's gonna be backing him up. Got his back. But HuK moving around. Positional play, gonna be so important with such a far away third expansion. Not something that you often see as, oh, DT's coming in. Oh, Semper is so on top of it. Doesn't even wait for the first swipe, immediately scouts it out. This DT getting a couple of kills, up to 4 kills right now. And Missile Turret is going up behind the mineral line. Is going to be protected, weirdly enough, by those Liberators. And scan does go down, but barely keeps the DT alive, though. The DT is going to be able to go back in. The third command center getting very low on health, and HuK, he's starting to bring this back further and further in his favor. He's got a better army supply. He's got a better worker supply. He's taking out more of these workers. The Liberator's sieging up a little bit more aggressively as he realizes HuK only has 5 stalkers left over, and there's a decent enough Liberator count. This is a very scary Liberator count. There's almost a single Liberator for each one of these stalkers. He's going to be able to force HuK back. Keeps his third command center alive, but loses a decent chunk of those workers. Also, not really able to get a whole lot of tech out of this. In a weird way, they are even on upgrades since it's sitting 1-1 versus +2 for HuK. Semper sitting on 1-1. Semper continuing to build up that Liberator count. The Liberator count gets a bit too far out of control. Then things can go fairly well for Semper, but the Stalker count is starting to build up once again. Stalkers can deal well with Liberators as well. They're well positioned, or the Liberator count isn't too high. Well, it's going to be harder to make work if Semper gets enough Liberators. Then it's hard to find your opponent out of position, because you only need so many of the Liberators to be in a good spot to really siege up against a decent chunk of Stalkers. Stalkers do not trade out versus Liberators very, very well if they're already sieged up, and you end up seeing some nice pickoffs. I like this. Little bits of harassment, saying this is almost kind of how a Zerg player would treat a Terran player back in Heart of the Swarm, where they say, like, I'm gonna pick off the rally point. You're trying to rally your units over to the third to make it for an easier defense. Well, I'm just gonna get between your natural and your third. Pick them off as they try and get over there. And it's working out pretty well, but some of the Liberators starting to re-siege up. Got more Immortals in the mix. Oh, this ramp is gonna be very hard to move up. HuK trying to move up it regardless, though. The Liberator's getting a lot of good shots off. Finally, the Stalkers try and blink forward. They are outside of the Liberator zones, but they're right inside the Marine Marauder zones. And they get obliterated. The Liberators clean up the rest. That was a very questionable move up from HuK. I'm actually really surprised to see him do that. He's been doing such a good job of taking really decent sized engagements. The fourth expansion being taken over here for HuK, as I guess he's realized this third expansion, it's doing well right now, but my natural expansion is starting to mine out, and I've got to get some more transitionary tech. I really want to see, that's actually what I want to see out of HuK more than anything else. Transitionary tech. Blink Stalkers, Adepts on +3 upgrades. Yeah, that's freaking awesome. I am all for that, but get up, I don't know, Robotics Bay, get up a Templar Archives, get up Stargates and start getting out some of those Tempests. I really don't think that just pure economy is really going to work out super well. I mean, the gold expansion is going to be nice. Don't get me wrong. He's going to be able to make even more adepts than ever before off of that gold expansion. We can secure that. But this Liberator count is continuing to grow, and that Stalker ball is really just not dealing with the Liberators quite as well as it was in the earlier stages. And now you end up seeing 7 Liberators to 7 Stalkers. Oh, that's not a comfortable spot. He's actually maybe looking around for some potential to snipe off some stray Liberators. I like that kind of play. Loses the Observer, ends up having to move Blink Black as the army stims up, but Semper is starting to look for a 4th expansion of his own. Probably not aware that the 4th expansion for HuK is already done, as he really has been sitting on the back foot this entire game. Finally, this is actually probably one of the first bits of, or maybe the second bit of harassment we've ever seen out of Semper in this particular game. Just because he's constantly being under the stress and the duress of having the entire army of HuK try to move down his 3rd expansion, his natural expansion, being shoved down his throat. But here we go, Liberator gonna try and siege up. There's not a lot in the main base. Guess you gotta siege up over that 3rd expansion. There is a single cannon over there. Not really a good photon overcharge available. Oh no, the Liberator, it was on a queued up command. It sieges up right in that photon cannon range. Ends up losing. No, he sieges up there again. Ends up losing and missing a great opportunity to pull this entire army back. And that breathing room would do so much. Because imagine, if you had that breathing room, suddenly this army moving up would be able to clear up a little bit of extra space, kill off any additional units. This army wouldn't be getting in again between the natural and the 3rd. And Semper could probably have maybe finish up this 4th expansion, sent it straight off over there very safely, maybe even started to put on some counter pressure. But just having that Liberator not able to make it over there, oh, that really did, I think, sting for Semper. That was a big opportunity for him. But now these Liberators used up pretty well. Going to make it very difficult for Semper or for HuK to move in. And Semper are going to try and take the more forward 4th expansion. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, Liberators, I suppose, are very aggressive units, and they do well sieged up, moving into your opponent. That slow siege forward, cutting off your opponent's breathing space. But this is still going to be such a wide area to cover. He has to cover not only this kind of chokish area and have his bio army both up on this high ground, but also he has to cover this wide area. Because, of course, HuK can also move in from this side. He can move in over here. I guess you can try and just cover this kind of area, this like screen of area as he's doing right now. But there is still the potential, I feel like, especially when the Tempest and everything start coming out. If you have a War Prism, moving an elevator and units up over here, or just a Zealot run by, I feel like there could be a very difficult spot to defend. But it doesn't look like HuK has any of that right now. Ghosts going to be coming out are going to be very, very nice, especially with how immortal heavy this army has been, as well as the Archons getting mixed in now. HuK is really, he just is not getting up that late game splash or the Tempest. It's just one of the two that I really like to see. And the Archons are good, the Archons are nice, but I really do feel like he is kind of putting himself in a difficult spot where I feel like he's putting him in a place where he feels like he has to win right now. Here we go. Tempest are not going to be in the mix right now. He's really just relying on the Stalkers, and the Liberator count is just a little bit too high. GG gets called, and Semper gonna win and advance on with a 2-1 victory over HuK. Really a hard-fought series from both of those players. It was getting scary over there for Semper on multiple occasions, but he does walk away with the 2-1 victory. Big congratulations goes out to Semper. He's gonna move on to that round of 4. Or sorry, he was in the round of 8. Yeah, he moves on to the round of 4. That's pretty freaking awesome. That's a really nice spot. And I believe he plays off versus Neeb. Oh god, he plays versus Neeb in the winner's semis. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be hopping to a short little break as we find our next match. You guys are watching the BaseTradeTV coverage for the ESL IEM Shanghai North American Passport Qualifiers Day 2 final stage with Fear Dragon. We'll see how many more things I can add on to that. We'll be back in just a little bit. Don't go anywhere. And of course, if you are looking for something to do during the break, there are a couple of other fantastic channels broadcasting. There's, of course, Wardy broadcasting. He's over at twitch.tv/Wardy with 3 eyes. And you have Nathaniel streaming. It looks like Take TV, after he dropped out, I think that the stream might have gone down. I don't know if like the internet completely died for them. Unfortunate. But I mean, that wasn't an English stream as well. So if you, either way, Take TV seems like is no longer at least attached on Team Liquid. I'm actually following Take TV. Do I see him live? No, I don't see them live either. So yeah, Wardy, BaseTradeTV, and Nathanius are your 3 options for additional streams. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hop into a short little break. Again, don't go anywhere. Going to be seeing what match the wonderful admin Farside gives me. I believe that actually we're going to be doing both of the winners bracket semis. So I'm pretty sure we're going to be jumping into Semper versus Neve, which makes me very happy. I am such a happy man. We're going to be doing... I'm so sorry to anyone who's a Zerg player out there, because we're just doing like straight up Protoss versus Terran, Protoss versus Terran, Protoss versus Terran was my favorite matchup. So I can't even be upset. We'll see you guys in a bit.